Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Perrin. He scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will go score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Bedford, New York.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 7 for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on grazing pastures, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview teams in the upcoming AHL season for you. We both watch a lot of AHL games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our podcast feed or channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a 20-minute primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, so you can check that out. If you're new to some of the more advanced stats terms, you'll be able to check that out so you can better pick up what we're putting down. I promise it isn't that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. So with that being said, let's get to business.
Yes, let's. And we've got just a handful of teams left. We're reaching for most of the AHL, we're reaching the season opener on Friday, February 5th. And we've got another trifecta that we're covering tonight, whenever you're listening to this. The Colorado Eagles, the San Diego Gulls, and the Bakersfield Condors. Now, we were going to do Colorado and San Diego as one episode, and Bakersfield and Stockton as another episode. But somebody screwed that up. And as many of you know, Stockton is now up in Canada. So the Stockton Heat are going to be playing in the Canadian division when they get their shiz figured out. So we clumped Bakersfield in with Colorado and San Diego, and it works quite well because now we have an episode title called West Coast Pecking Order. Get it? Because all the team's mascots are birds. Anyway, all silliness aside, like Sean said, let's get to business. Let's talk Colorado first. That's the team and the home market that I cover here. Head coach Greg Cronin, he is entering his 3rd season with the Eagles in their 3rd season in the AHL after making the jump from the ECHL 3 years ago. 1920 regular season record was 34-18-3-1. That was good for 2nd in the Pacific behind Tucson before the season came to an abrupt end last March. The affiliation for 2021, of course, the Colorado Avalanche, just south of Loveland there in Denver, and the Utah Grizzlies over in West Valley City in the neighboring state of Utah. Games scheduled for this year, 36. So Colorado actually had 38 scheduled. They played Stockton 4 times. They had to, of course, scrap those games, including their opening weekend. So Colorado's home opener doesn't take place until February 24th against Tucson. So yeah, got to wait a little time. No fans anyway, but still, that might be a little time for me before I go and cover a game in person. But yeah, they adjusted it. They had 2 games taken away from net 2 games taken away, I should say. They added 2 games against the Ontario Reign to bump that up to 6. But other than that, that's the only schedule adjustment that they made with Stockton going to the Canadian division for 2021. So with all that said, I'm going to defer to Sean to start out talking about the Colorado Eagles forwards core.
So with the Avalanche trading A.J. Greer to the New York Islander organization and the retirement of Eric Condra to begin his coaching career with the Hawks, the Eagles lost 2 second-line forwards this past season. However, with some free agent acquisitions, some young Avs draft picks from the CHL, the club out of Loveland doesn't look too bad heading into training camp. having newcomer and kind of tweener NHL, AHL left winger Kiefer Sherwood up with the Avalanche stings a bit, but such is life for AHL teams in 2021. Some of their top talent will be up there.
True.
TJ Tynan and Jason Megna are still around, though. Tynan continues to be one of the best playmakers in the AHL and is able to use his creativity to open up passing lanes. Megna has a long record of being a steady depth scorer with good skills. Megna does find a familiar face from his Hershey days in my long-lost cousin, Liam O'Brien, who joins the Eagles from the Bears. Cousin Liam provides one of the better defensive forwards in the league who can be expected to finish his checks, contribute some offense, and not get caught in transition. That forward core is complemented by a second-line quality newcomer in Michael Vecchione, who is someone who is going to not make highlight reels with skills or skating, but he's a good net front battler, and he can get the job done in the clutch. In that same sense as Martin Kaut, who also won't be making too many highlight reels, but uses good decision-making, good skating, and excellent work ethic to get the job done. Ryan Wagner comes back to the Eagles this year and provides a scoring threat on the third or fourth line, while former Rockford left winger Alexander Fortin provides even more experienced forward depth. As far as interesting newcomers go, Jean-Luc Foudy could take the title of best skater in the AHL away from Anthony Greco, as the 18-year-old can absolutely fly like an eagle. The rest of his game still needs some developing, and while he has the wheels, his decision-making and execution aren't top six ready just yet. Sasha Mutala could be an interesting player. He had a great showing with basically no help last season in the WHL. He has some good playmaking ability, but I think he still struggles to adapt to the processing speed of the pro game, more so than the physicality of playing against grown-ass men. But I think he could be a surprising, impactful player for the Eagles. The same could be said for Ty Lewis, who had a not terrible 18-19 showing with the Eagles, considering how young he was. His 19-20 was mostly in the ECHL, where he tore it up.
Yes, he did.
He's entering his prime years and has decent offensive puck skills, so I think Ty Lewis could turn a few heads this year. Luka Berzon skates well and has puck skills paired with good vision and creativity to make some plays. His defensive game isn't something that's going to throw coaches, but I think he can be a reliable bottom six forward for the Eagles this season. Nick Henry could be valuable on the penalty kill and as a forechecker, but I don't think he contributes more than that. But there's some talent there that hasn't progressed well to where I think he makes a leap forward. With a few more injuries on the Avalanche, Eagles regulars Sheldon Dries, Logan O'Connor, and Shane Bowers, as well as Kiefer Sherwood, are in the mix with the Avs either on the taxi squad or the active roster. And while I expect they'll all get a few games in the show and spend some time up there, take in the sights and sounds of Denver, I think most of them make at least a cameo appearance in an Eagles uniform this year. Still, this is an okay forward group without them, but I think Eagles fans would feel a lot more comfortable if one or two of them spent a good portion of the season in Loveland. CC, that's the forwards, broken down, but not broken. Tell me about the defense.
I will here in a second. I just wanted to comment on the Avalanche injuries. I mean, you've got so many forwards out right now, so a lot of potential Eagles are going to be called up either on the taxi squad or on the active roster. So, yeah, it's looking like a mash unit for the Avs currently. But
with the way the cap is structured this year, you're going to see a lot of taxi squad, active roster kind of things. Most of those, for the Eagles fans out there listening to us, if you see those, don't think that means anything too sturdy, as there are a lot of salary cap duckings going on, is the best way I'd say it, where they can save money on their daily cap hit by moving some pieces around from the taxi squad. Nathan McKinnon just went down last night and is looking to be week to week, which, yeah, that's not great, Bob. But I think long term, they're eventually going to get healthier, and you're going to see some of those guys come back.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, it's just probably, hitting the ground running, and then just, all the injuries that can occur on the Avalanche and otherwise. And of course, COVID-19, that's also throwing a wrench in a lot of NHL teams' plans as well. But anyway, let's talk about the blue liners for the Colorado Eagles. So the Eagles defensive core took a big hit with the loss of last season's captain Mark Alt to Ontario. He signed with the Los Angeles Kings organization. Jacob McDonald seems unlikely to return from the Avalanche. and standout D-man Kevin Connaughton went to the Florida Panthers organization. So the implementation of a taxi squad by the NHL this season, and no under 20 CHL prospects to really speak of as reinforcements, certainly leaves some panic to be had in the D-corps for the Eagles. Currently, only Dan Renouf is the only returning Eagles defenseman who played significant games last season. Renouf plays shutdown defense and is a favorite in the locker room. You know, championship runs with both Grand Rapids in 16-17 and Charlotte in 18-19. That definitely ticks the playoff experience box as well. He boasts NHL size paired with solid puck movement, but he isn't a big point producer or leader on special teams. Now, thankfully, the Avalanche organization grabbed a few D-men in free agency, including previous Rockford IceHogs bruiser Dennis Gilbert. Gilbert manages to be a physical stay-at-home defenseman without forcing his team to frequently kill a bad penalty. Whereas acquisition from the New York Islanders organization in the AJ Greer trade, Kyle Burroughs plays a similar game, but really hasn't mastered the not taking dumb penalties part. Carrying over from last season, Kevin Davis looks to wipe the slate clean after a disappointing 19-20, followed by a promising 18-19 season. 6'6" Keaton Middleton. He needs to utilize his big frame and be a little more physical in the corners. He's a big dude, but he just needs to show a little more toughness and grit. His in-zone defensive abilities are good, and he makes solid first passes, but he lacks the offensive vision to contribute more than the occasional seeing eye slap shot. I'm not expecting much more than a baseline contribution from Matt Apt. He was kind of a borderline, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Wheeling Nailers guy for the past few seasons up with the Pittsburgh organization. But I am looking forward to seeing what rookie Ian Scheid can bring to the table. A consistent play with hockey sense and an ability to process the game quickly. He's an offensive-minded blue liner that can contribute on special teams. And I say that because I know that he quarterbacked the power play in college. I got to interview his head coach earlier this offseason, actually last summer. So, yeah, had nothing but good things to say about him. Real sharp kid, willing to learn, just very much soaks it in. He's just very much a sponge when it comes to hockey IQ and things like that. To conclude, this group has some puck moving ability, but not a lot. They should be adept in keeping pucks out of their net, though. So there's that. We talked about defensemen. Sorry, Sean.
Right.
Let me lead you in there. Let me lead you in a little smoother. Hey, we talked about forwards. We talked about defensemen. Let's talk about the Loveland-based voodoo practitioners for 2021. How's that?
Perfect. And for those who are new to our show, goaltending is voodoo. We feel the need to say that at least once an episode. Goaltending is wild, unpredictable, and frequently unstable. It's voodoo. So
it is voodoo.
In 2021, this was supposed to be the year that saw the return of Avs prospect Adam Werner to the Eagles, but injury to backup Avalanche netminder Pavel Francouz has relegated Werner to the taxi squad. Beloved Penn State product, Peyton Jones, has been thrust into the front of the Eagles' goaltending depth chart. With athleticism as a familial trait, as his brother's a second-round MLB draft pick, Jones remains calm and communicative in stressful situations. His work ethic during his 4 years of college also helped put the Nittany Lions on the map in both the Big Ten and NCAA Division I overall. He's an incredibly aggressive puck-playing goalie and will look to start the breakout by himself if he can. He led the nation in points for a goaltender in 3 of his 4 years at Penn State. He uses his athleticism well, but doesn't rely on it, and has decent structure, but his movement can get erratic and busy at times, especially when he's under a little bit of chaos in front of his net. Parker Gahagan and Kevin Carve served the Utah Grizzlies well in 2021, both respectable goaltenders at the ECHL level, but mostly unproven in the AHL level. Gahagan has a handful of AHL games under his belt. Carr has none. Gahagan has a good frame on him and plays a very conservative depth in his net, rarely coming out past the crease to challenge shooters. I haven't been impressed by Carr and think he struggles to read the play and anticipate shots at the higher levels of hockey, and that won't get it done at the AHL level. But like we say, goaltending is voodoo, and it's been a long time since these guys have played. It's very possible that they've managed to pick up some tricks along the way. Last goalie on the roster is Trent Miner, who may squeeze some time in net should he impress in training camp, but look for him to head back to the WHL's Vancouver Giants if and when the CHL gets the okay from British Columbia's health organizations to play. On the 28th of January, the WHL announced that Alberta had approved a February 26th start date for Central Division teams based in the province. But that's a long time from now, and so many things can happen. And that's still only the Central Division of the WHL.
Right. That's just Alberta. That's not BC. So
yeah, there's still plenty that can go wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
Miner reads the play well and has good structure in his game, but he lacks the athleticism and frame of some of his compatriots in Eagles camp. So I can also see a situation where he kind of gets squeezed out and maybe gets a couple of, game starts here just to make sure that he's staying engaged and so on. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that the Eagles want or should lean on this season. And that's all of our skaters. Let's talk outcomes here. Let's be positive up front. So CC, tell me, what's the best case scenario for this Eagles team?
Well, best case scenario, they are a good team on paper in what appears to be the best division in the AHL this season. We've already kind of extolled the previous Pacific Division teams like Ontario. Ontario comes to mind, in regards to that. But should they get some send-down help from the Avs in the form of guys like Jacob McDonald, Adam Werner, Kiefer Sherwood, that could help them tilt the arms race in their favor. In that best case scenario, they will finish with 53 points, which is a 95-point pace in a regular 68-game Pacific Division season. That's the best case. Sean, what's the worst case?
Well, the worst case is that Calvary never shows up, and the goaltending doesn't do so hot. Tynan and Cal also see time away from the Eagles, as the Avs' injury woes and COVID concerns make their taxi squad need to take on more healthy bodies. The defense looks slow and underwhelms on its own end, given the expectations that we have for them. They're unable to make clean exits and get transition going. In the worst case scenario, they finish with 42 points. That's still a 75-point pace in a regular season. This is still a team that has enough good parts to it that the floor is still pretty high.
And the most likely scenario. Let's talk about that. We've covered the best case, covered the worst case. What's the most likely scenario? The model likes this team, but recognizes the division is tough. It projects them for 49 points, which is a 89-point pace. And while I like them, I see the rest of the division, and I'm unsure if reinforcements are coming down the pike. Again, we'll get into it with San Diego and Bakersfield. These teams are stacked, and it's going to be really, really competitive. So I'm going to take the under and say 47 points for an 84-point pace. And don't chastise me, Eagles fans, on social media, please. I beg of you.
Just remember, it's only a model.
It's only a model. Yes, it's only a model. If you notice, we got the Monty Python guys on our headers, on our social media pages. That's why, because it's only a model. So,
all right. Well, that's all we got for the Colorado Eagles. It should be a good season for them, but those battles with teams like Ontario and some of the others we're going to preview next are going to be the tipping point in a lot of these. And while the Avs have definitely enough to compete, it should be a close cut of how they finish the season. But hang on, we're going to pay some bills, and we will come back to talk about the San Diego Gulls in our pecking order of the Pacific Division.
And we're back, getting ready to talk about the second team in this 3-team West Coast pecking order episode of the AHL season previews that we're doing. So let us begin with San Diego. We'll talk a little bit about their capsule stats here. Head coach Kevin Dineen entering in his second season with the Gulls. 1920 regular season record was 30-19-6-2, which was third in the Pacific Division last year before the season was cut short. Affiliation for 2021, Anaheim, of course, in the NHL, and new this season, the Tulsa Oilers in the ECHL, who are one of 13 teams playing currently. Fort Wayne's wrapping up to make that 14 here in just a few short days, a couple weeks, I think. So anyway, Anaheim and Tulsa, their affiliations for this season. Games scheduled 44. That is the league. That is the most in the league. They've got the most games scheduled, and they did have 4 against Stockton scheduled, but they comped that with 2 more against San Jose and 2 more against Tucson. So they've got 10 games against Ontario, 8 games against the Tucson Roadrunners, and then 8 against Bakersfield, 6 against Colorado, Henderson, and San Jose. So lots of games for the San Diego Gulls, 44. That's a league high. So there's your capsule stats. Let's talk players. Let's talk on the ice. We'll begin with forwards. And with Anaheim acquiring Trevor Carrick from San Jose on January 27th, it united him with brother Sam on the same professional team for the first time in both of their lengthy AHL careers. I had to look that up. I wasn't quite sure when that acquisition happened, but there we go. The Carrick brothers reunited, and it feels so good. Although they're united, so not reunited. Anyway, we'll talk more about Trevor later when covering defensemen here in a moment. Now, Sam, graded as one of the elite forwards in the AHL in 2019-20, his shooting talent and ability to drop a shoulder and drive to the net continue to make him a top AHL forward. And he's once again joined by a guy who can also rip pucks and has a nose for the net, Andrew Agozzino. Now, the model has Agozzino also gradely as a first-line forward last year. Both have already seen time with Anaheim's taxi squad this year as well. So, I mean, obviously you got good guys like that. You're going to get the call up to the taxi squad in a season like this. A returning Andrew Podorowski adds to the playmaking crew for San Diego. And if the 2019 Calder Cup MVP can remain healthy, he'll bring his puck skills, excellent vision, and solid shot to an already stacked forward group. His skating isn't the best, but the previously mentioned strengths make up for it at the AHL level. Centerman Vinny Lettieri has been freed from 4 seasons with Hartford after the model scored him in the 90th percentile among AHL forwards in 1920. A de facto replacement for the departed Daniel Sprong, Lettieri can slot in on the first power play unit alongside Podorowski, and with his decent puck skills, strong work ethic, and good skating abilities, he's going to make a solid impression there on the special teams unit. He doesn't have the caliber of shot that Sprong possesses, but will still be a scoring asset on special teams, for sure. Isaac Lundstrom is currently in Anaheim, but I would expect him back in San Diego at some point. His film shows a good toolkit, but the results just aren't there, unfortunately. Regardless, he's responsible in his own end and can be trusted to play top 6 minutes, so there's that. Recently signed Matt Laredo is a serviceable depth forward with an upside if he produces, 50-point seasons like he did earlier in his career. Let's be serious, though. The forward we want to talk about is Trevor Zegras. Now, Zegras is an elite talent. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's got top-tier puck skills paired with that hockey IQ that's off the charts, and he makes incredible passes that look ordinary. They just look ordinary, but man, they're just super incredible. He's going to make some Pacific Division defenders just look bad this season. Colorado, I might be looking at you. And yeah, that's. I mean, I'm all flustered now talking about Zegras. So anyway, while he made
to seeing Zegras,
I know, right? I mean, God, San Diego's blessed this year just by having him for sure. Benoit Olivier Gruel is still a very dangerous forward, but not in the wow sense that perhaps Zegras has. Gruel is more subtle, but still has the puck skills to make high-end plays, and his shot is best described as cask strength. I think he takes some time to adjust to the speed of the pro game, but I have confidence he'll be an impact player for the Gulls this season. Sneaking into the AHL this season, last but not least, is Brandon Tracy, the Ducks' 2019 first rounder. And if and when the WHL comes calling, he'll have to take his offensive creativity and playmaking ability back to Victoria. But until that time, he's a good middle 6 option for the Gulls, especially if paired with some of the Gulls' better skating forwards, as he doesn't have that separation gear. So that's the forwards group for San Diego. Let's talk a little bit about the defensemen. Sean, over to you.
Like his brother Sam, the model has Trevor Carrick in the top tier at his position, scoring in the 90th percentile amongst AHL defenders in 1920. Fun fact, if the Gulls managed to figure out a way to get the other 2 Carrick brothers on the roster, they would get a set of steak knives. Trevor Carrick, though, embraces a very mobile and 200-foot game that utilizes his good speed and awareness to join the rush and act like an extra forward at times. Trading forward Jack Kopaka for Carrick on January 27th was a screaming deal for the Gulls. A top-grade blue liner for a 3rd or 4th line forward? You take that deal 10 times out of 10. You just hope that you don't sound too excited on the phone and tip your hand.
Right?
Josh Mahura played big minutes for San Diego last season, and I thought he took a step forward. His skating is excellent and enables him to kill plays in the neutral zone before they become dangerous, while his offensive game is slowly coming along. For a guy that's 6 foot and 198 pounds, I'd like to see him be more physically engaged in his zone, but I think he's someone who can take steps forward. After a season in Lehigh Valley in 1920, Andy Welinski returns to the West Coast, otherwise known as the Best Coast, in the San Diego system for his 5th year with the organization. He's in Anaheim currently, but I think he returns when Josh Manson and Brendan Gooley get healthy. Welinski's puck movement is exceptional, and he's had decent puck skills and is a capable shooter at the AHL level. But I don't know if he ever recaptures that magic that he had in 17-18, where he looked like one of the best defensemen in the league. Simon Benoit returns for a 3rd season and brings with him a very conservative but physical game. His game is more shut down, and I think he should be paired with a fast-wheeling offensive defenseman as his partner, someone like Jamie Drysdale. Speaking of which, Anaheim's first round, 6th overall pick from the 2020 NHL entry draft, Jamie Drysdale is currently rostered with San Diego. I can't stop saying enough nice things about Jamie Drysdale. He is kind of like how Zegras was for CC a minute ago. I love me some Jamie Drysdale. He's an offensive-minded defenseman who possesses excellent skating ability. That helps drive his offense as he uses it to create odd man rushes while still being able to make it back in time to play defense. Drysdale can also process the game at that top speed, which allows him to be creative and find plays that, quite frankly, others simply don't. He's also an adept power play quarterback and should be given time there, as he can walk the blue line and distribute the puck at a high level. This is a kid who is going to be a future NHLer, and not just an NHLer. He's going to be a future NHL All-Star, I think. He is someone that you're going to be hearing in the Norris conversations in, 3-4 years. But that is about it for the Gulls' defense of note. Now we must talk voodoo. Cece, how do they do that voodoo in San Diego this season?
Oh boy, there's going to be a lot of it for sure. So let's get started with the first goaltender here. And it makes me a little leery putting a goalie in net with the last name of Glass. Whether referencing a glass jaw or the villain Mr. Glass from the movie Unbreakable, it doesn't denote something positive. And fittingly enough, it is the same for Jeff Glass. Whether playing in the AHL or the KHL over in Russia, his stats have been anywhere from good to meh. Albeit in recent years, he started to trend more towards meh. To his credit, though, he stopped breakaways from Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in the same game to seal an NHL win. So, good job.
Got that going for you.
Got that, which is nice. The 35-year-old is likely to be in a timeshare with Anaheim draft picks Lucas Dostal and or Ollie Eriksson Ek. I put the Ek in the middle there. Ollie Eriksson Ek. There we go. Depending on which, if not both net minors are impressive in camp, he could share time with either one of them. Dostal has never played in North America, at least professionally, but he's wildly successful in Finland's SM Liga, where his ability to read the play and see through traffic was on display. Eriksson Ek has put time in with the Tulsa Oilers in the last 2 seasons down the ECHL to mixed results. He's got okay movement and seems to have the poise you'd want in a starter, but otherwise I don't see anything remarkable. Where's Anthony Stolarz when you need him? Oh, right. The taxi squad. Yeah. Anyway. So,
it's funny. The NHL sponsored its division names this year, and I guess they were going to sponsor the taxi squad name. Uber stepped in, and then Ottawa decided they'd had too much of Uber problems, and they were going to just,
Oh, that was a good one. I was wondering where you were going with that. I'm like, wait, did they really? I'm like, oh, he's cheesing. That was good, Shawnee. Good job, man. Okay. You're welcome. Let's talk outcomes. We'll go, of course, with the best case scenario first, and the Uberman himself, Sean, go for it.
It's not hard to see a best case here. The roster is loaded for bear up front and along the blue line. Guys like Zegras, Drysdale, and Gruel can stay for the whole season. That means guys like Carrick are up against second liners. Good luck, everybody else. If the goaltending can hold it together, I think they can rip through teams. In this scenario, they finish with 66 points. That is a 98-point pace in a normal season. I don't know if that's a Pacific Division record, but it might be.
It would be up there, and it's not skewed like the Atlantic Division was in regards to their 105-point pace seasons that the model projected them at. We're talking Pacific Division here. We're talking a very competitive, rough and tumble Wild West, and 98-point pace in a normal season. By God, that is a solid projection. Now, the other side of the coin, the worst case scenario, Anaheim and or the CHL takes away the fun prospects, and Jeff Glass looks bad, and neither Dostal nor Eriksson Ek can right the ship. Walensky doesn't recapture his prime form, and guys like Lundstrom and Letteri never live up to what we thought they could be this season. In that case, they finish with 53 points, which is a 78-point pace and usually good enough for a playoff spot. That's the worst case scenario, usually good enough for a playoff spot.
Like sneak in there though. Like this is a team that Drysdale and Zegras. I don't know if you saw the highlights from Zegras' exhibition game, but he was dunking on dudes in an exhibition game. He is gonna make people look bad this year.
Well, let's talk the most likely scenario. And if Drysdale and Zegras stay there, I'm sure that's gonna be
if Drysdale stay there and Byfield and the Black and Silver Bandits in Ontario stay, those are going to be appointment television.
Yeah, no doubt. So most likely scenario.
The shares model we currently use projects them for 55 points, which is an 82-point pace. So this is where I have some bones to pick with the model. It doesn't like guys like Drysdale or Zegras nearly as much as I do, but it has some guys like Agazino a little higher than I think is warranted. I don't think those balance out though, and I will take the over and say they finish with 59 points, which is an 87-point pace for a normal regular season in the Pacific Division, which is that's usually first place in that division.
Yeah, that's super solid, no less, or no doubt. No doubt, no less, apparently. So, that's it for San Diego in regards to wrapping them up and what we think they're going to do this year. And so, with that in mind, we're going to take a break for some ads so that we can pay the bills and keep the lights on. So, hang with us. 2 teams down, 1 to go in this episode. We'll be talking about the Bakersfield Condors next. Okay, and we're back. I've got my wits about me, and we're going to be talking about the Bakersfield Condors here in this Birds of a Feather West Coast pecking order named episode. So Bakersfield, let's preview their capsule real quick, talk about head coaching and their record and the sorts. Jay Woodcroft has been the bench boss for them. He's entering his 3rd season, kind of like Greg Cronin over there in Colorado. 1920 record was 21, 27, 5, and 2. That's I hesitate to say that's good enough for 6th in the Pacific out of 7 teams last year. It was kind of a mercy killing of the season for them, since they're just like, just end it, please, for the love. Anyway, affiliations for 2021, Edmonton Oilers in the NHL and the Wichita Thunder in the ECHL. Wichita is active and playing there in the Western Conference. Games scheduled 40, kind of on the higher side, just like San Diego, but 4 less games. They play Colorado 4 times. They also were scheduled to play Stockton 8 times, but they had to divvy up those games between San Jose, Ontario, and Henderson. So now they play Henderson 10 times. They play San Jose 10 times, and they play Ontario 8 times. And they play San Diego 8 times as well. So, holy crow. But I digress. What was that, Sean?
That's a good break for them, actually.
How so?
Well, at least from what I've seen so far, before any games are actually played, I would say Stockton/Calgary has a better team than Henderson so far. So the fact that they ditch games against a pretty fairly matched team to one that they should be able to overpower, that was a good break for them.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I'm like, okay, well, they got rid of some games and they added some over here. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the prowess of Stockton's team and how that would affect, a team like Bakersfield that played him 8 times. Colorado only played him a handful of times and adjusted their schedule accordingly. So anyway, don't want to spend too much time on that, but a very astute observation from my esteemed colleague there. Let's talk about the Condors forwards group. Sean, take it away.
Well, to be negative right off the bat, losing leading goal scorer Josh Curry to the Penguins organization stings for Bakersfield. But the Condors had probably one of the best offseason free agent acquisitions in former Stockton Heat centerman Alan Quine. Fluid skating and above-average puck skills typifies Quine's game. The smoothness with the puck combined with good playmaking vision in the offensive zone and transition, that's a guy I want to have on my roster. His lack of top speed probably prevents him from sticking with the NHL club, but when the model has you in the 98th percentile of all forwards, that top AHL player grade is not by accident.
No.
A great acquisition. At 35, Adam Cracknell played his 900th professional game earlier this season in Denmark. His hockey DB page reads like a Johnny Cash song, and he's gotten to have a career this long because no matter where he's been in the minors, he's put up offense. As shooting talent just ages well. If you don't believe me, just ask Ovechkin. Regardless, in the arms race that is going to be the Pacific Division this season, Adam Cracknell is going to play a vital part here. Joining him as the resident graybeard in Bakersfield is Brad Malone. Malone's only played 583 pro games. I mean, right?
It's not 900.
Yeah.
But like Cracknell.
A useful depth playmaker who has a decent shot. While he doesn't have the same length of resume Brad Malone does, a similar description fits Luke Esposito. Seth Griffith is another good forward. Free agent pickup. His offensive first style and playmaking vision have an NHL kind of quality to them. He's a really good shooter to boot. His skating, which it's not pretty, it's oftentimes inefficient and choppy, and it makes him look like he's working twice as hard as he should be to get where he's going. Free agents aside, Bakersfield brings back one of their leading playmakers in left winger Tyler Benson. I like Benson's hockey IQ and ability to find the seams on the power play, but his skating concerns me, as does his shooting ability. In terms of shooting ability, Joseph Gambardella has it, but he was always going to come back to earth after shooting 29.9% in 18-19. It's 14 goals on 93 shots in 19-20 is still a hard pace to sustain, but it's much more reasonable pace for him and one that he's at least flirted with in previous seasons. But ain't nobody shooting 30%. Ryan McLeod returns after a 23-point season. The model had him ranked as a fourth line forward, which is harsh. But I see a strong skating center with better puck skills than that would alone lead you to believe. He's 21, so there's plenty of reason to believe that he can take a step forward this season. But behind those guys, there's a slew of undrafted guys who just finished college or just aged out of juniors. The most interesting to me are Liam Fulks and Devin Brasseux. Fulks was a crafty two-way forward at Penn State. There we go. Who did everything well, but nothing terribly exceptional. Still, he was big in clutch moments for Penn State and seemed to find another level to his game when the clock was winding down. Brasseux was an all situation guy at Clarkson. He has an okay shot with good playmaking vision, but never really stood out in a way that said, I'm a top AHL player. But according to everything I could find about him, he's a great guy in the room, is big in community service, and if nothing else, you always need those kind of glue guys to hold the team together that round out the bottom six, especially ones that have the work ethic that he touts from his coaches and teammates. But that's the forward group. They're a good, deep bunch up front, and they have a slew of guys that I think could fill those, bottom line, AHL taxi squad kind of players. So I like the bunch a lot. I think they have a lot of potential. CC, how does it look on the back end?
Well, on the surface, it looks not dismal, but it kind of looks just like you got a lot of new faces coming in, quote unquote. They only have 2 returning defensemen from last season. Vincent Desharnais and Jake Kulovich were the only 2 on their roster from last season, and they combined for just 54 games with Bakersfield between the 2 of them, and they both probably are best served as bottom pair guys. However, two veteran blue liners are returning to the Condors after a season elsewhere. You've got Kevin Gravel, who played in Toronto in 1920, and Ryan Stanton played with Ontario with the Reign in 1920. So both of them returned to Bakersfield. Now, Gravel isn't very mobile and he's overly risk averse, but he does have a knack for getting shots from the point through traffic and has the velocity to make them dangerous. Stanton is a physical defense first style player, but does have some offensive ability. His skating just doesn't do him any favors, though. The theme of twos continue. You had two returning guys, two veteran guys that came back. Now you've got two D-men from Scandinavia joining Bako this year. Theodor Lennström played 4 seasons in Sweden's top league, the SHL, which stands for the Swedish Hockey League. He's a solid skater, possesses a good shot, and unsurprisingly is an offensive-minded defenseman. Although he also can avoid penalties, he needs to work on his positioning if he's going to become a quality top-tier blue liner in the AHL. Markus Niemelainen spent 4 years in Finland's SM Liga. So you got Lennström 4 years in SHL, Niemelainen 4 years in the SM Liga. He comes stateside and he's a remarkable two-way defender. I tell you what, he is probably the most, he's on Bakersfield's roster. The new guys that are coming in, he's the person that I'm looking forward to seeing the most. So he's a big, strong, smooth skater. It's pretty rare in hockey to have a big, smooth skater. And Niemelainen is most certainly a rarity. His hockey IQ is high, gauging defensive zone situations effectively to either maintain his lane or push the puck up and out into the neutral zone. He's also the youngest D-man in the lineup this season at age 22 for Bakersfield. The third-round Edmonton draft pick from 2016, Niemelainen, will no doubt have high expectations in the AHL this year, as I'm kind of pumping his tires as well. Last but not least are the final group of two. We're going to talk about the rookies. Giannis Yaks has played in the NCAA, the NAHL, internationally in his native Latvia, and for their national team, and has been biding his time in the KHL until North America hockey got going. The consistency throughout all the leagues that he's played in has been a knack for assists and shying away from too many penalties. So that's a solid addition for a rookie coming into the Condors D camp. Now, Cornell University product Yanni Caldas is a bit smaller at 5'11" and 187 pounds, but he has a similar playmaking tool set as his rookie counterpart with a wicked wrist shot to boot. He quarterbacked the power play in college, but can get down in front to screen goaltenders in a pinch. Even with the turnover from last season, bringing back veterans from more successful seasons, a promising Swede and a Finn, plus some bullish rookies, this makes me think that the defensive group for Bakersfield is better off this season than they were last. And I mean, when you're 6 out of 7 in the division, really all you can really go is up, at least you hope. All right, so that's forwards, that's defensemen, as I just covered. Let's talk about Bakersfield's voodoo practitioners, the goaltenders. Sean, where did all the goaltenders go?
I have no idea, CC.
Sure you do. Sure you do. Talk about Dylan Wells, Troy Grosnick, and Stuart Skinner. Where did they go? They were on the roster just a little bit ago, like just a couple weeks ago, and now they're gone. What happened to them?
Bye-bye.
They just Mary Poppins out of here? What are you talking about?
Grosnick, too, is one that was a victim to what is maybe one of the stupidest offseason mechanisms I've ever seen the NHL create. Where it's like, to send guys to this taxi squad that we all agreed that we needed, you have to go through waivers in which any player can claim, or any team can claim you. And especially as like you required a goaltender to go there. And almost all of them have to be waived to go there. So it's just basically a free market of third and backup goaltenders. And that's Troy Grosnick. Bye. We wanted to keep you, but the NHL decided that we had to do stupid stuff to get here.
Yeah, he signed with LA in the offseason, like we mentioned during Ontario, and then Edmonton snatched him up off of waivers. So what can you do?
Stuart Skinner is on pace to own the Edmonton Oilers in 3 or 4 years, as he is failing upwards at an alarming rate. But he's currently in Edmonton. Wells is on the taxi squad. And Grosnick is slated as the secondary goalie behind Mikko Koskinen, while an aged Mike Smith, gets healthy from injury. So who does that leave Bakersfield with currently? Enter Agnes Redmond and Oliver Rodrigue. They call The goalie they call Beef has extensive ECHL experience, like 7 teams in 3 years extensive.
Whoa.
However, he had a career year in Newfoundland last season, going 16-2-0 before the pandemic abruptly ended the 1920 campaign. Even with a .1947 goalie point shares per 60 and .117 goals saved above average per 60, Redmond has been consistent in his play despite fluctuating records on the stat sheet. Rodriguez has posted 3 straight 30-win seasons in the queue from 2017 to 2020, and has been getting reps in the ICE-AHL, which is in Austria for those playing along at home, before hockey starts back up in the A. His athleticism and quickness can lead to some highlight reel saves should the opportunity present itself, but his best trait is his ability to read the play and see moves ahead. That, combined with solid rebound control, gives him enough tools to do the voodoo at the AHL level. So that's the goaltenders that are left. CC, let's talk outcomes.
All right, we'll start with the best case scenario, and I'd like to apologize for belaboring that point, but when you have a roster and you have 3 goaltenders, and then you go back a couple weeks and all 3 of them are gone, it's like, all right, well, I got to research a couple more now here. So anyway, best case scenario, the best case is easy here. The Oilers get healthy enough to send a goalie back, and Cracknell and Quine put on a show. Benson, Griffith, and Gambardella, they look great behind them. The newcomers on defense step up, and the ship sails smooth. They finish with 54 points for an 87-point pace in a normal season. That was the best. Let's talk the worst. Sean.
Well, the worst is the opposite of that. The Oilers' goaltending situation gets worse, and the Condors' net tandem flee across the border faster than the Stockton Heat. While the forward depth keeps Condor Town competitive, the defense just never gets it together, and with a goalie shortage, things go poorly in a tight and talented division. Worst case scenario, they finish with 43 points, which is a 70-point pace in a normal regular season. It's not great, Bob, but it's not world-ending.
And, we got to shoot the middle. Best case, worst case. Let me talk most likely scenario. The model really likes the Condors way more than I personally do, but we both see a brutal schedule ahead. At least they got rid of Stockton for those 8 games. For context, the model has Bakersfield as a top 10 team by strength, but it's 3rd in a division and neck with Colorado. It projects the Condors for 47 points, which is a 75-point pace. I like them a pinch more than that. I'll say 49 for a 79-point pace. So, yeah, they make it interesting. They keep it competitive, and, you're going to have a well-balanced decor and a lot of, I'd say good balance as well with forwards, veterans and things like that. But, yeah, 49 points, 79-point pace. God, the Pacific Division is going to be competitive this year, Sean.
A lot of kids, too. So if the CHL gets its act together, this is going to change very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the taxi squads changed the rosters like that overnight. We had to make so many adjustments, even up to recording day. So anyway, that is it for the show. And Sean, take us away and start the outro, my friend.
So if you guys are enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe to get episodes in a timely fashion. We've been pumping these previews out at almost a daily pace. And when the season gets going, we're going to slow that down a bit, but you still want to make sure that you're, getting the episodes when we're putting them out there. Also, please rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media, at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. It's also a little scrolling bar that just, snuck its way in there on our YouTube channel.
Oh, I'm about 50-50 for queuing the little scrolling link below. So there you go. My name is CC Hockley, and I'm a hoser when it comes to queuing up the scrolling link below. I will confess that. But that all aside, I will say that Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can find our show, other hockey programs, and many more sports podcasts on the network through Full Press coverage at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Pretty straightforward, eh? As for myself, you can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL, and at my personal Twitter account where I talk music and, other sports, not just hockey, but mainly hockey. My personal Twitter account is at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Sean?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. Both of those are personal accounts. I do tweet and, post pictures about hockey, but there's also some nonsense, some pop culture, and stuff like that in between. You can find my stats work where the model is housed, as well as all of the other stats you might hear us throw around that are a little bit better than, goals, assists, points, and that other one that we don't talk about. That's at bit.ly/data dump and chase, all lowercase, all one word. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction, DYSFUNCTION.
And that'll do it for episode number 7. Looking at the list here, we've got Hershey, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Cleveland, Rochester, San Jose, and Tucson. We'll cover those 6 teams before the Friday, February 5th start date for the AHL season. The Canadian teams, of course, will come later once they get their schedule figured out. But for Sean O'Brien, once again, I'm CC Hockley. Thank you guys for tuning in, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. And keep your stick on the ice.